Run. Keep running. Don't stop. Don't you dare stop. Come on, Sully. You've got to get through this. I can hear them even over my heavy footsteps on the metal grates. My friends, neighbors, co-workers on this stupid tin coffin floating through space. Reduced to this. There was no way out either. Just them or the cold void outside this vessel. I'm dying no matter where I end up. These damn things will get to me. The RSS Eden, a getaway space station sitting along the edge of the solar system, has been in operation for a few months now. Last night, we were due to have our first ever planetary flyby, with Pluto finally reaching us on its revolution. Big event. And of course, I had to fucking work. God forbid we let everyone on the station see it. But me and some of the other kitchen crew ended up feeding everyone after some creative scheduling from the boss. Figures, even at the edge of the damn solar system, workers get exploited. Everyone else got to set up on the station bridge with an unobstructed view of the horizon reaching all the way to the sun at the middle. Apparently, the pass was pretty quick. There and gone, like a car passing on the highway. Not that I would know, considering we were stealing a smoke break in the walk-in. Kind of hard to go outside for one when you're millions of miles from an inhabitable atmosphere, so you gotta take it where you can. The rest of the night, all I heard was bragging from those that got to see Sharon orbiting around Pluto as it passed by. All the rich assholes that didn't have to work to keep their place up here talking about how amazing it was. How when you see them up close, they're like massive glaciers floating through space. Apparently, there was even a comet trailing not too far off as well, just adding to the show. Must be nice. A couple of them even said it looked like they could see through the ice. A massive shadow of the planet itself visible thanks to the light. Honestly, the rest of the night was uneventful. We closed the kitchen down, had a few drinks, and all went back to our rooms before we had to be back for prep the next day. I was asleep for, I don't know honestly, maybe a couple hours. Then, the screams woke me up. I could hear banging all along the corridor outside, punctuated by shrieks of terror and pain. My first thought was that some drunk guest started shit with one of our people. Hell, probably Jamie down the hall getting caught with another guest's wife, so now they want revenge. There was every attempt to rationalize it, but the screams told a different story. The last few hours have been a total blur. I stayed in my room as long as I could, the screams holding out the entire time, the sounds of heavy footfalls everywhere. But eventually, I started to smell smoke. It began seeping in through the cracks in the door. Something had caught, and the fire was spreading fast. I had to leave. I had to cover my hand with an old shirt just to pull the door handle, and a rush of heat met me as soon as it opened. Fire on my left, a clear path to my right with screams echoing from beyond the corridor's curve. Not much of a choice where to go, so I started to run, heading into the screams in favor of burning alive. Beyond the crew living quarters, there was a small common area. Not too much, but a few couches, a TV with a few gaming consoles and movies, ping pong, and a couple of microwaves. Pretty standard stuff. Except when I entered now, it had been given a fresh paint job of a deep, deep scarlet. There had to be gallons of blood, spread and splattered all over the room with no care to where it landed. The floor was slick with it, almost totally covered in a thin layer that squelched with every step. All of this blood, yet no body in sight. Were they taken somewhere else? Devoured? What the fuck is going on? I could hear another scream from further down the corridor. Exiting the crew quarters and moving into the resort area. We had probably 24 guests on board right now. Has it gotten to all of them? Where the hell are all of my coworkers at? No, don't worry about that yet. All in time. Worry about finding out what the hell is going on here first. It took a few to get through the common area, stepping carefully so as not to slip in the slick layer of blood on the floor. When I finally made it, footprints trailing from the common area to the resort guided me to my next destination. Hopefully, whoever left them was still alive. But the rat tracks began to fade after a while, leaving me guessing again. There were smears of red sporadically along the wall, but nothing to denote where everyone had gone off to. The screams from before only echoed sporadically now, with the large open area of the resort only making their whereabouts unclear. The sun was shining in the distance outside the viewing window, a brilliant lighthouse in the void of space. A low growl broke the silence, making me nearly jump out of my skin. Thanks to the viewing window, everything here was brightly lit, even the doorway leading further in toward the guest rooms. The shining light poured in through the door, illuminating a lone figure walking toward the viewing area. I resisted whatever urges I had to shout at it, instead backing up to hide behind one of the chairs. Whoever it was, they let out a gurgling noise, like they were trying to rinse their throat, but just couldn't get it back out. When they finally stepped into the viewing room, I finally got a clear look. I don't know who they were originally. Any defining features were gone, ripped away along with every inch of skin on their body. Completely naked, glistening in the sunlight coming through. Muscle and ligaments were the only thing visible on their body, all moving in a grotesque mechanism to guide them closer to me. Every muscle, every tendon, the slightest movements were paired to the naked eye as they moved closer, blood smearing along the floor as they walked. Despite my best efforts to not make a sound, a small scream escaped my throat, alerting the skinned creature. It snapped too, facing toward me with lifeless eyes twitching in the exposed sockets. For a brief moment, it gurgled, staring in my direction before taking off toward me. Limbs were flailing wildly at its side as it ran, closing the distance between us with next to no effort, while I was slipping just trying to find some semblance of safety. I fell in the slick viscera, struggling to get back up as the life force below me slipped and splashed. It just got closer, bearing down on me, blood steadily dripping from the stripped muscles as teeth peered above me. God, why? What the fuck was happening? It lifted a hand toward me, fingertips of sharpened bone ready to peel my skin off, making me just like it. The thing fell off, writhing on the ground next to me. In the doorway ahead, one of the security guards was standing, gun raised to fire at the thing again, as I struggled to stand, holding hands above my head as he aimed at me next. Whoa, whoa, I'm not like that, I said, looking down at the writhing creature and sliding my way further from it. He just stared at me, gun leveled right at my center mass and finger on the trigger. Anyone alive back that way? He said, pointing to the direction I had just come from. I shook my head. There's a fire taking the place over. Probably need to seal it off before it spreads, I said. Not that any of us could do that. It required management level clearance just to run the damn garbage ejector, much less seal off an entire damn wing of this place. That fire would have all of us making a decision soon. Either burn to death, or content with rapid depressurization in the cold void outside. Rasping next to me nearly made me jump before I realized it was the damn thing laying on the ground a few feet away now. I wasn't going to wait and fuck around with that, and looked over to the guy, motioning to the skinless being nearby. Not to be ungrateful or anything, but can we get away from this? The guard lowered his gun, motioning for me to come with him. Quietly, we ran down the hall toward the spa area. I was just following him at this point, hoping he knew what the hell was going on here. But I get the feeling he's as in the dark as I am. I'm Sully, I said, breaking the silence and looking toward him. I extended a hand, withdrawing it once I got an actual look and realized I was covered in blood from my fall earlier. He only grunted. Mick. So, is there anyone else alive? What the hell is going on? I asked. Everyone went fucking crazy, was his only response. I don't know, I just clocked in around 3 this morning for my shift. Then, some asshole comes running by, holding a knife he probably stole from the kitchen, taking parts of his skin off. Jesus, I whispered under my breath. Have you found anyone else? Just you so far, he mumbled, checking around a corner to see if anyone was lying in wait. We go through here and head up. It'll put us up near the bridge. Gonna call in for help. Dude, it's going to take way too long for any kind of help to get up here. We're literally at the edge of space, I said, getting a little loud now. It's settling in that if things are this bad, that means we're not going to have long alone up here. God knows how many of the staff and guests are like this now. How many of them have you seen so far? Dozen or so. Couple in the process of skinning themselves, I guess. Found some going at it with a pair of scissors. One of them snipping away at the other like it was some crafts project. Found another one just going to town with fingernails, bringing their own skin off in little bits piece by piece. Okay, I'm gonna stop you there. I might throw up, I said. Seeing a skinned person was one thing, but hearing about how they got that way has my skin crawling. He was describing it so damn casually too. Sorry, spent some time in war zones, so I forget I'm a little numb. He mumbled again. We turned a corner into the pool room, Olympic size, all the way up here at the edge of the solar system, and nobody living to swim in it. Not that it was up to standard anyway, I realized as we stepped in. Red clouds floated sporadically in the water, with bodies visible below. One close by, near our end of the pool, looked like it had a huge cape billowing behind it as it floated through the water. A moment later I realized it was the remains of the body's skin, not quite separated all the way. I wanted to puke right in the pool then and there, looking away to try and abate my disgust. Didn't work too well, considering I hurled right onto the floor within seconds. The people in the pool at least seemed to be dead, not taking any kind of notice we were there. We hurried through the pool room, coming out in a small maintenance area situated behind it. Pumps and tanks hummed, with water beginning to slush from a small overflow. As we walked through, I caught sight of one of the filtration systems. Someone's face caught in the screen for debris. I'm not sure who they were before, but a little bit of hair was clinging to the scalp, empty eye sockets screaming out as the water pulled it to and fro. I shivered, turning away and continuing down the back hallway, toward a maintenance elevator some of the service guys used. Should be a lift somewhere around here, Mick mumbled, moving down the hallway steadily, making sure to check gun first around every corner. A loud bang came from the maintenance room behind us, something hitting the door before scraping along the metal floors, coming closer to us. Mick swore, ushering me to move faster behind him. I made the mistake of looking back. There, in the dim lights of maintenance, a skinless man was making his way toward us, brandishing something that was already glistening with blood, much like him. The screech he let out was inhuman, and I could see tendon and muscle stretching on his face in the eerie light as he did. Turning, I powered on behind Mick as he ran ahead, desperately searching for the maintenance lift. Eventually, it appeared on our left, and he smashed the button so many times, I'm surprised it didn't just pop right off. The lift began moving, slowly coming down. The sign above it flashed 6, coming down slowly to floor 1 where we were at. Time slowed to an eternity as the skinless man made his way down the hallway, getting closer with every agonizing step he took. Mick pushed me aside, raising his gun and firing off one shot, hitting the thing in the center mass. It stumbled, rasping for a moment, but got back up. It didn't seem like the first one took much back in the common area, but I don't know if they're all different. It kept coming at us, now screaming louder as it got closer, like it was trying to signal the others around the station. Looking back at the lift, it was only down to floor 4 by this point. Not good. Mick let off another shot, this time aiming for the hit and hitting his target right in the left eye. Part of the thing's skull blew away, exposing brain as skull fragments were blasted off. The brain moved. Swear to God, I thought I was crazy at first, but the huge hole that was torn in this thing's head was teeming, moving every which way like it was itself in pain. The way it was moving reminded me of how shellfish look when they're still alive, moving in like a fluid way, but very obviously out of their environment, struggling to live. Either way, it was making things difficult for the body, which started to trip and stumble every which way in the walls around it. Ding! Fluorescent lights welcomed us into the lift, and we both nearly threw ourselves against the back wall, desperate to get as far away as possible from that. I pressed the 8, putting us all the way to the top where the captain's quarters and communications room would be situated. I had seen it when we got onboarded a while back. They gave us this huge tour of the ship and explained where everything was done. The main ship officers would be up here, able to give us an idea of what the hell was going on and how we could get out of here. Everything was about to get better. Just have to keep telling myself that. I don't even believe the lie. As the lift goes up, Mick checks his gun, taking stock. He looks to me after reloading the magazine. 6 left. Save one for me if things go bad up here. Please, I asked, nodding. He gave an affirmative, flashing 2 fingers. Smart. 1 for him, 1 for me. The door opened, making us think that those 2 bullets might be our best bet at this point. There was nobody visible on the main bridge, just a massive glass dome that gave a view of the vast emptiness all around us. Space, dark as could be, with Pluto floating off one way, the sun blazing like a far-off paradise a long ways past it, and the big dark abyss beyond it. Smeared on the glass, going toward the captain's chambers, was dark red blood, almost dried on the cold window. A handprint that showed someone was either grasping for support or being dragged away against their will, streaking along the cold panel and through the doorway. We walked over to one of the doors on the far side, leading to the communications room. That was our best bet, after all, opposed to what may be waiting in the corridors on the opposite side. Nothing in here seemed out of place. Most of it was still pristine. Monitors on, measurements coming through constantly that checked on the outposts, oxygen, and other important functions. I made my way to a terminal, looking through to find what I was after. Thankfully, I spent most of my time playing around with the comms in this place, figuring out how to get messages out past the pretty strict censors they had on our internet. Can't have people knowing there's a secret rich people resort out past Pluto after all, especially when nobody even thinks FTL travel is possible at this point. God, if I make it back to Earth, I'm either getting rich off spilling these beans or getting put in the damned loony bin. Maybe both. There, the comms began to light up as I placed the call back to Earth HQ, the fuckers that ran this entire shit show.
You're through, Eden. What can we help you with?
A voice came over the other line. Oh, thank fuck, Mick swore, making whoever was on the other line yelp a little.
Not very professional, Eden. You're usually a bit nicer when you call.
She responded, indignant. Look, professional is the last thing on our minds right now. There's a big problem up here, I said, talking over Mick, who was getting ready to swear at her again.
Who is this?
She asked again.
You don't sound like Lynn. Where is he?
Ma'am, if I knew, I'd put him on. Like I said, we have problems up here and need someone to come get us, I said again. Something happened. People have gone crazy. It's a bloodbath.
A bloodbath? You can't be serious. How?
She asked again. Jesus Christ. Just talking to her made me just want to get Mick to shoot me. He piped up then. Listen here, ma'am. I know your fat ass back on Earth ain't worried about what's happening outside your atmosphere. But we're in real danger here. People are killing each other. Mick was going off. I almost wanted to cheer for him at this point. But he continued. Now, you either put me on with someone higher up that can get us a rescue ship, or you get your ass on one and fly up here yourself. Understood? The line went dead for a second. I legitimately thought he had just made this woman hang up, killing our hopes of getting a ride out of here. It continued on for another few minutes, dead air coming through in staticky bursts as radiation through space and countless thousands of miles interrupted the signal. After a moment, a man's voice came over the line.
This better be fucking good,
he said, sounding like he was already fed up with us.
What's happening up there that you're waking me up?
Who the fuck are you? Mick spat out now. Oh god, here we go. Now it's just going to become an argument instead of a rescue.
CEO Mitchell Farmer of Eden Excursions. Who the fuck are you?
He spat back. It took everything I had not to stop a groan escaping when I heard his name. God knows, this rich asshole wasn't going to listen. Mick Sperry, guard on your shit can of a resort. There are people up here tearing each other's skins off and killing each other. We need to get the hell out of here. Mick was shouting now. I looked back, unsure of if he would attract any more of the skinless ones.
You sure?
The voice was more sober, serious now.
How many of you are still alive?
Me and this kid. That's it as far as I know. Mick mentioned. Look, I never saw shit like this, and I've been in war zones. The hell is going on?
Not sure. Listen, I'm very sorry about what's happened to you. Hope you find a way out. Have a great day,
he said. Honestly, if I expected any better from someone with the CEO title, I would probably be pretty mad. As it stands though, I'm unsurprised and more focused on how the hell I'm going to get myself out of this mess. The line went dead. Nobody on the other end anymore. "Shitting me?" Mick whispered, moving to the console and pressing a few buttons, waving me aside. The call wouldn't go through again though, instead being immediately picked up and denied. They're just going to forget about us and go on like ain't shit happened. Great, so we get killed by one of those things? Or die from old age, starvation, disease, whatever? I said, slumping down and rubbing my eyes. Everything was catching up to me now. My entire body ached from falling over in that blood puddle earlier, and I was absolutely filthy. There are emergency ships, right? There's one emergency transport ship. Yeah, that might work, he said, standing up and typing something in on the console. After a moment of mumbling to himself and crouching over it, he stood up straight. It's docked and set right now. Needs at least a vice captain clearance to let it loose though. I looked at him for a moment, both of us communicating something neither wanted to speak. As I looked back toward the captain's quarters, the blood smeared on the glass seemed to reflect the light of billions of stars outside, confirming my fears that we would need to go in there. Fuck. Alright, if it's our only option, I said, standing now and walking over to the comms doorway. He stood, following and drawing his gun once more. I flashed 2 fingers at him. Just remember, save too. He nodded, taking point and moving across the bridge quickly. We paused in front of the captain quarters, taking a deep breath before he kicked the door in, going in gun drawn and level in front of him. Moments after, he went in. I entered behind him, hearing his words right as the stench hit me. Holy fuck. Death was thick in the air here, the heavy metallic scent of blood mixing with the more biting odors of excrement. There was blood smeared all over the walls, with tatters of flesh hanging from the ceiling. As we stepped through, I could hear something coming from the room up ahead. A tearing noise along with deep guttural grunting. Mick kept his gun trained in front as I grabbed a bottle from a nearby table. It was thick glass, though still half full of some kind of spirit. It took a lot to resist taking a swig then and there, but I didn't want it to slush around and give us away. I held onto it tight though, waiting to take a swing at anything that may come. As we approached the doorway, I could see further into the room beyond. All the lights have been covered with strips and swaths of human skin, casting an eerie red glow over everything around. There was one person sitting in the middle of the room, skinless just like all the others. Other skinless bodies were scattered around, and in front of the sitting one was another, still having its own outer layer removed bit by bit. Mick accidentally bumped a table, making a cup tip over and shatter on the floor. The skinless sitting in the middle of the room turned, eyes bulging bright against exposed muscle on its face, and screamed, leaping forward at Mick, who fired off a shot. It fell back momentarily, squirming at the bullet now lodged somewhere in its chest. I could tell Mick was trying to be careful with his shots, considering there was a relatively large window on the opposite side of the room. I took my moment, stepping forward toward the skinless one and hitting it with the bottle right over the head, causing it to shatter as I did. It screamed as strong alcohol hit the bare muscles and nerves, unguarded thanks to the skin being peeled off. I still had hold of the neck of the bottle though, now ending in a nice, jagged shot of glass, and ran it down one more time, tearing through his eye and making him go still for a moment. I pulled it back out, readying for another strike, but could see the squirming of something from behind the eye socket. The brain in this one was moving around erratically, just like the one downstairs, desperately trying to get out despite the harsh environment. Jesus fuck, Mick whispered, looking around the room at everything. I couldn't help but agree with his sentiment once I took everything in as well. There was drawing on the walls with blood. It looked like some fucked up futuristic cave drawings. Red viscera smeared in the images of people watching as a massive planet passed above them in the distance, small stick figures looking on in awe. But further down the wall, the planet passing over suddenly had this thing drawn inside it. The entire planet picture was filled in with viscera and blood to color it, but right in the middle, There was more focus, something like a mass at the core slumbering. "Oh, holy shit," I whispered, pieces of the puzzle fitting together in my head. "Sharon did this." "The moon?" Mick asked, still looking around the room. He was going over tables and looking in the pockets of any clothes he found laying around, desperately trying to find the keycard we could use for the emergency ship. "Something in it caused all this," I began, before Mick cut me off again with a loud shout of victory. He was holding up the keycard, showing me the surly captain's face printed right on it. I can't help but think that's who was lying here, on the ground beside me, responsible for this fucked up little remodel with skin all over the walls. "To be honest with you, Sully, I don't care what caused this. I care about getting the hell out of here," he said. The man spoke sense, even in the middle of this hell that looked like Ed Gein's wet dream. I nodded. We weren't able to leave the room before Captain came back, screaming as the thing in his head suddenly began to leak out. It wasn't the brain anymore, if that's what it was in the first place. This thing was round, grey like brain matter, but slithering along the ground like a sea creature desperate to find a new puddle to live in. Mick lifted his gun, firing at it. It split, pieces moving faster toward bodies on the floor and propped on the walls. "No, no, don't shoot anything else," I said, pulling on his arm and running to the door. Every body touched by part of this thing suddenly began to jerk and move around, writhing on the ground as they began to stand to their feet. Each one was letting out a low rasp, guttural sounds like they were learning to speak for the first time. Mick got the hint and started running, clutching the keycard as they began limping after us, skin still hanging off of some in strips and patches. I swear, they were all smiling as they came after us. Maybe it was just the exposed teeth in their cheeks making it look that way, but their evil grins almost had me frozen in fear. We made our way to the lift, desperately pressing to open the door on it again. As it did, we clambered in once more, slamming the door shut by pounding on the button until it actually cracked. The skinless were just feet away when the thing finally came, their barren grins disappearing as the doors came together tight, sealing them out. "I hate it here," I said, bending over to grab my knees and to try to stop myself from puking again. Sour bile in my throat was the only answer, acid burning on my tongue as I nearly choked. Mick gave me a pat on the back as I stood, wiping my mouth. "We're getting out of here, one way or another," he said. 5 left. I nodded as the elevator dinged down. Looking at our destination, we came up from floor 1, but there was a garage level just below us, and that's where we were headed. The emergency ship would be there, already gassed up and prepared for any type of medical or personnel event that may require someone to be shuttled through space at a little over light speed to get back to Earth. Now, it was just a matter of getting to it without setting off every skinless asshole in this place. No such luck for us. The door opened with a ding on the basement level, giving us a full view of the garage area. I could see the windows on either side, giving us a clear view beyond as the emergency transport sat there in the hangar, skinless bodies milling around it. Stars were shining in the distance, taunting us that we were never going to get out of there. The ding of the elevator was all they needed to turn in our direction, every single one of the damn things focusing right on us. "Run," Mick told me. I took off, going to the right and hoping to get some distance between myself and those things. Mick ran to the left, trying to draw them off with a gunshot. 4 left now. They all began milling toward him instead of me, so I was able to try and take a stealthier approach, hiding behind shipping containers and other transport crates to make my way to the emergency vehicle. There was one damned one though, who was just, I don't know, broken? He wasn't following Mick, but was instead just waiting for me in the shadows of a shipping container close by. When I walked by, it jumped out, grabbing me by the arm. I could feel sharpened finger bones digging into my skin, scratching and running furrows through it, drawing blood right near my elbow. I screamed, kicking at it to no avail. The claws dug in further, with another hand reaching for me to render more of my skin from the rest of my body. I made a desperate plunge forward, feeling the claws in my elbow tear even deeper, shredding muscle now as I let out a scream of pain. It was enough though, and I made it far enough away that I was able to break out of its grasp, though I believe it took some of my flesh with it. Mick was on the other side of the hangar still, mopped by at least 6 of the damned creatures when he shot off another bullet, popping one right in the head. 3 left. I could see the writhing mass as it stumbled forward, knocking into one of the others and nearly sticking to it. The bodies began to almost congeal together as they made contact, forming into this unholy mass of blood, muscle and bone that was still trying to get to Mick. Finally, I was in the ship, but he was at least 3 dozen yards away. I heard him yell my name as I ran forward, trying to find some way to help him out of the deadly predicament. As I got closer though, I saw him hold up the metal keycard with the captain's face on it, motioning for me to catch. I haven't seen anyone throw a card like that since Gambit in old X-Men cartoons. But damn, his aim was good. I was able to catch it as it whizzed through the air nearby, coming right toward me. The mass of bodies was pressing in closer to him as I turned back, intending to get the doors open so he could make a run. I swiped it by the ID reader, opening the small side door and stepping in, turning back to look for him. The bodies kept running into each other and congealing, all mixing into one massive being, arms and heads all waving wildly while screaming in an unholy chorus. One arm had his leg, another was exposing claws that were being sunk into his back now. And no matter how many times he tried to break free, it was useless. One hand lost the grip, 2 more took its place, keeping him bogged down. I was in the doorway of the ship, screaming for him to get over here so we could just close the door. Instead, he started moving the other way, further down toward the hangar door.
"Close it, dumbass!"
he shouted at me now. I didn't want to though. I had only known the guy a few hours, but he had already saved my ass countless times. No way I was just going to leave him in this skinless chimera that kept grabbing hold of him now. He screamed again, claws rending the flesh of his shoulder, causing blood to spray out over the amalgamation of bodies. They almost delighted in it, dancing as the blood hit them. Mick raised his gun toward the hangar window, shouting again.
"Now!"
2 shots left. The hangar window cracked a little where the bullet hit, a small chip appearing in it. This stuff was thick though, and wasn't going to give easy. 1 shot left. Our deal was off, I guess. My arm stung, pain searing from my elbow outward as I hit the button inside the ship, closing myself into the small shuttle. The spider web began to spread on the glass, moving quickly through the long pane toward either end. Once it broke, this ship would probably be pulled right through, out into the void of space. Hopefully, it held together long enough to let me set up the autopilot back home. The last shot did it, hitting right on one of the already branching fractals of the cracking glass. Mick let out a cheer as another of the amalgamation's hands ripped at his throat, causing another blood shower to come down, finally killing the man that had saved me barely hours ago. His last deed was enough, because before I knew what was happening, the glass gave in to the pressure differential inside and outside, bursting into millions of shards that spread out among the stars in space. Every single body in that hangar was ripped out, though the ship didn't budge. I was still sitting securely on the hangar port, watching as the amalgamation of bodies was thrown far, far away, reaching toward the farthest void of space, floating the opposite direction of the sun. Eventually, I stopped looking. Mick's body must have been torn apart immediately when the window came down, because I couldn't see him anywhere. The amalgamation was still writhing as it went, the whether of its own volition or that of space, I'm not sure. When I finally got to the cockpit, I realized the magnet anchors were on, keeping the ship steady in place during all of that. It took a little searching, but I was able to disengage them, watching out of the front windshield as the ship began to float gently above the ground. Steadily, ever so steadily, I managed to maneuver it out the window. The rest was simple. An autopilot system that would aim it right at Earth. Not like there was anywhere else this thing was fit to go. I keyed everything in and sat back, letting the computer do the rest. Think I'm going to find that guy when I get back. What was his fucking name? That's right, Mitchell Farmer. Maybe I'll get enough bullets so that he can have one for everyone that was up here. Maybe I'll give him 2 for Mick's memory. Eden faded behind me. The dim lights inside shining through huge windows, given the appearance that the space station was still thriving. Despite all the death on board, it wasn't a bad job while it lasted, honestly. Definitely going to be a pain in the ass getting used to being on Earth again. God, it's going to be a long flight back. But this message will probably get back to Earth before I will. If you see Mitch down there, well, give him a message for me. Don't tell him who it's from. Just give him a nice little scare to get him ready for me. Tell him he's going to lose his skin.